Fog of War is one of Fire Emblem's most hated and despised mechanics. Forum after forum has been filled complaining about the feature since its introduction in Thracia 776. However, Fog of War is not unique to Fire Emblem. The feature is a staple in many genres, such as RTS games, MOBAs, and other turn-based strategy games. One notable entry is Advance Wars. For those of you who don't know, Advance Wars is, or I should say was, an SRPG series created by Intelligent Systems. It features a familiar grid-based combat system, although uses replaceable military units that can be purchased with funds, rather than child soldiers with growth rates. Advance Wars also had a Fog of War mechanic. However, it was more thought out and overall cleaner compared to Fire Emblem. The reason I mention this is because Advance Wars and Fire Emblem are made under the same developer, and many of the suggestions I have were implemented in Advance Wars, meaning it wouldn't be a stretch to add them to Fire Emblem. Before I give my suggestions, we need to quickly analyze some of the problems associated with Fog of War. My biggest gripe with the feature is its lack of nuance. Too often have I felt that Intelligent Systems designed a map, placed the units in objective, and then added Fog of War as an afterthought. This use of the feature makes the game artificially harder and less enjoyable because we, the player, have no idea what to expect. This is the same reason why ambush spawns are so hated. They punish players who are playing the game blind, when they should be punishing the player's choices based on the information available. Now, not all Fog of War maps are created equally. Some are clearly designed with the mechanic in mind, and integrate it well within the map design and enemy placement. However, I feel the vast majority of Fog of War maps butcher this mechanic's implementation. The first step to better integrating Fog of War is designing the map around it. This starts with the objective. The player needs to clearly see their goal despite the Fog of War, meaning the objective should be turn or map based. Some good examples are escape maps or defend maps. And for the love of Kaga, please do not give us route maps with Fog of War. The chapter needs to have a sense of urgency, a reason for the player to keep moving forward or defend their position. Unit-based objectives, such as route and kill boss maps, destroy the sense of pacing and turn the Fog of War chapter into a grueling slog. A new possible objective that could be implemented with Fog of War could be a domination goal. Similar to domination game mode in many FPS games, this objective would have the player racing to capture and defend a piece or multiple pieces of territory from the enemy who is trying to achieve the same goal. This type of objective would place a sense of urgency to both play efficiently and effectively as the player is forced to strike and defend multiple locations. Fire Emblem has experimented with similar objectives. However, I think this type of goal would fit well with Fog of War as long as the territories are clearly identified and distinguished. Moving on. There are a few mechanics featured in Advance Wars that I believe would strengthen Fire Emblem. The first of these are terrain. Fire Emblem treats all terrain the same when concerning vision. However, I think applying vision mechanics to terrain would increase the strategic complexity and open new possibilities. For example, one solution is to have forest tiles require 2 or 3 vision units to view, making them great hiding spots and ambush points for the player or the enemy. Additionally, peaks or mountains could give additional vision. However, I'll get into this later in more detail. Another mechanical tweak is to have vision be diversified over more classes. As it currently stands, only thieves have extended vision in Fog of War, while every other unit is subjugated to the same vision. An improvement to the system would be to give some units, such as flyers and mounted units, slightly extended vision. This would improve their utility in these types of maps and give way for some more strategic possibilities. Some other small mechanical fixes could include decreased accuracy for ranged units, and decreased range for siege tomes in Fog of War. Like, come on, Ursula can really see my Nino 10 spaces away in the dead of night and sniper like a US trained Marine? Some things aren't fair. A feature that I would like to see is map-based vision. As it stands, all vision granted during Fog of War comes from your units. I suggest adding a new tile type that gives vision to the player or the enemy. This feature would make the maps more engaging as it gives a smaller objective for the player to pursue to gain an advantage. Radiant Dawn experimented with this idea in Chapter 2-2, where torch pillars could be activated to give the player vision surrounding the structure. To expand this concept, I propose two types of beacons: magical beacons and physical beacons. Like the torch pillars, a beacon would give vision surrounding the structure when activated. A magical beacon would only give vision to the team who activates it. So if the player captures the beacon, they gain vision around the area while the enemy does not. These magical beacons can be captured to exchange vision. A physical beacon would behave much like the Pillars of Fire from Advance Wars' Days of Ruin. These beacons give vision to both teams when activated, allowing the player to choose whether to activate them or to shut them down. I think the inclusion of these vision structures would allow players to make decisions based upon the prospective vision gained or lost instead of just a large, dark field. The final map change I would make would be to reintroduce elevation. Radiant Dawn played with this concept in the endgame of Part 1 and Part 2, where units at a lower elevation would receive an accuracy nerf, and those at a higher elevation would receive a hit rate buff. In Fog of War, I propose that units at a higher elevation gain additional vision over lower areas. Vice versa, units at a lower elevation receive a vision penalty when looking uphill, making it more advantageous to hold high ground positions. This concept, paired with the defense or domination map, has a lot of potential, as it could reward players for sieging high ground areas while supporting others who simply wish to defend their territory against oncoming enemies. The second step to improving Fog of War is altering the enemy AI. The AI system in Fire Emblem cheats. It plays Fog of War maps as if there are no fog at all. Instead of having two sides fighting for vision and objectives, we have a blind player stumbling around while the enemy AI watches and laughs as they send Wyvern Riders to pick off your healer. The most direct fix to this issue is to force the AI to have its own vision and make decisions based upon current and possible future information. Now, this is a big change, as I can imagine that altering the targeting system for an RPG is a lot of work. Also, I am not a game developer, nor do I have extensive coding experience, so I can't accurately predict how much work this would take. However, Advance Wars experimented with this concept as the AI in Dual Strike and Days of Ruin had their own vision and had to play accordingly. I'm sure intelligent systems will need to tweak the AI to fit Fire Emblem maps and targeting systems, but implementing such a system is not out of the question. In fact, I would say this point alone is the most important change to the current Fog of War system. Many of my suggestions above would not apply or make sense if this change is not made. Giving the enemy the same conditions as the player turns Fog of War from a one-sided assault to a complex and engaging battle. As much as I hate Fog of War, I believe it's redeemable. I hope that Intelligent Systems continues to improve the flawed system and includes it in future installments. It has a place in Fire Emblem. It just needs a new face. I'm Aldwin, and I'm out.